Black Saturday, crucifixions, Andy Kaufman, the 2020 expose, curtain calls. Wrestling has had its share of controversial moments, but we wanted to know what you thought was the most controversial. So on this show, we'll count down your top 5 choices via our online poll at kayfabecommentaries.com. And we'll see what the stars of the ring have to say about your choices. So let the countdown begin. These are wrestling's most controversial moments. We start with the number 5 most controversial moment, and it carries on the tradition of bookers who have never wrestled winning heavyweight titles. Remember Jim Barnett holding up that NWA title in the center of the ring? Remember that? Me either. But I do remember Vince Russo doing it.
No, that is controversial, because how in the world could he even, he's not a wrestler or anything, and he wins the title. That's the most ridiculous thing ever.
Okay, don't remember because that was so insignificant. And that's a top 5? That's 5? Really?
Controversial angle.
Poo, boo, horrible.
When was that? It was still in WCW, so I was like, I think I was 8.
It's the year 2000.
I really have no comment on Vince Russo winning the WCW title. I think it's kind of a waste of airtime, to be quite honest with you.
Very controversial, yes. I would say that would be in at least the top 5 for sure. Yes.
You really want my comments on that one?
No, I never saw it, and I'm glad I didn't, because I probably would have had a really bad taste in my mouth for a long time, been spitting for a long time.
Well, I can't figure it out. You know, I mean, I didn't know Vince Russo at the time. All I heard about, I don't know Vince Russo. I've never met Vince Russo. But all I've heard about Vince Russo has been 98% bad.
Anything involving Vince Russo was controversial. No matter what you think about the guy, whether he's a great story writer or a lousy story writer, he's always going to draw controversy. The world title belt on his waist, ugh, please.
Vince Russo, of course. I mean, but you know what? That's a trend that you see on the indies all the time. Maybe he started it, where the writer, producer, booker puts a belt on himself. So maybe that's where every indie in North America got it from, and probably around the world, where the booker automatically puts a belt on himself, usually over a top name. So it makes perfect sense. But you know, hey, who am I to question his creative artistic ability, right?
I just don't think that event was too controversial based on the players involved. Vince is a writer, and he was pretty much really the writer that came in and changed the business as far as writing goes. So I think that gave a good soap opera writing angle to wrestling.
Vince Russo in anything except behind the stage is rotten. Rotten.
Well, I think that's ridiculous.
It devalues wrestling because it's not wrestling anymore. That's what's wrong with it.
Oh, it's one of those things that I can't. It's like one of those things that you like to somehow figure some way to pretend that it never happened, but it did happen, and it's how do you forget it? It's for anybody that came up through the territory years and realized the importance that was put on the world title and the guys that held the world title and how they were revered, for lack of a better word, by everybody else in the business, and then to have Vince Russo reduce it to that and do it with a straight face where he justified it as compelling television. It's horrible.
Dusty was good. He was entertaining, and he drew people. Russo never drew a dime. That's the difference.
When you start taking people behind the scenes and putting them in the forefront in the wrestling business, it kind of becomes a mockery, my own opinion. I think guys that write shows should stick to writing shows, and guys that are performers should be performers.
That's ridiculous. That's like putting non-wrestlers in the Hall of Fame, in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. Why would you do that?
He never wrestled before. He'd never been trained. He was a a video store salesman from Long Island. He worked in a video store, and him and this little fat friend of his had a radio show once a week over on Long Island. They bitched and pissed and moaned about everything in the wrestling business till Linda McMahon said the best way to shut this guy up is to give him a job, so they hired him to write for the magazine.
How do you pretend that never happened? And how, you can't, how do you justify it? It's like what everybody worked for. And there was some guys, like I said to myself, okay, I'm proud of what I accomplished as a performer, but in my wildest imagination, never saw myself at that level. And so to have been in the ring with a Pat O'Connor, Harley Race, Jack Briscoe, Dory Funk, Terry Funk, was an honor in and of itself. Not thinking that somehow maybe I deserved consideration, that I might be elevated to that point. And then to have, in the same breath, somebody talk about listening the history of champions, and to, on that list, have, I can't even say it. It's embarrassing.
See, back in the day, I mean, NWA was probably one of the greatest territories ever, even better than, WWF in the older days. I was raised old school in this business, so I was shown every video from every territory and organization there ever was. And most of the stuff I watched was old NWA stuff. You had Steamboat and Flair going their 1 hour Broadways. That was classic, great stuff. And then when Bischoff and Russo got a hold of it, it just became a joke. It just became a soap opera, and I think it totally devalued NWA. I don't think anybody even remembers the quality NWA was, because all they think of is the crap WCW was.
You guys got, like the gentleman you mentioned, Harley Race, Dory, Ric Flair, all these guys for years and years and years. You were proud of their product because you knew they were going to be effective in the ring. You get this jabroni to steal Cheeky Baby's word, it makes it look good, horrible.
When they put belts on guys that aren't in the business, that aren't your TV stars, I think it takes away from everything that everybody works for. When guys work to do that, that means something. You've worked hard to get there. They don't just hand it to them. Well, in that case, they handed it to them, but they don't just hand those out. If they did that, I'd go to Walmart and get me one.
If he won the title, then I should have won the title.
It's like a guy that buys a ball team, and he makes himself the star. The people and their fans are saying, what the hell is this guy doing? He owns a team. He should, it's like Ted Turner. Ted Turner was okay until he took over the manager position of the Braves. And then the fans adored him before, and then they farted at it because they figured just because he owns the team doesn't mean he's going to be the manager. Of course it devalues your product.
Vince Russo, you know what, and I really don't know the man, but I think that he's riding his own freaking ego wave. Vince Russo, has a good mind for the business, but he thinks it's far better than what it really is, in my opinion. Vince Russo is an egomaniac, and it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, that's a more credible thing, having a guy that's been in the business. Now, if he can be impartial and put the title on himself or somebody else while he's booker, it doesn't always have to be on the booker. But most of the time, a guy that's booking, usually in a bigger territory like TNA or WCW or WWE, will not put the title on himself.
Of course, he let himself do that because he was running the company. Did he deserve it? Absolutely not. That just made WCW, I think, into more of a joke than it was, and I'm not a fan of the WCW days. Before I was there, sure, maybe they had some good stuff, but the whole time I was there, that place was just. Can you curse on this thing? Absolutely. It was the shits. Trust me.
He had his good days and he had his bad days, just like every other booker. You can't say, hey, this guy's a genius booker, everything he does is great. What about the stuff you don't see? What about the stuff that lays in that booking room that we don't see, how stinky that stuff might be?
I think it was something new and something that hadn't been done before, so therefore it was controversial in many people's minds. I personally think that it was completely logical. When you add writers to the show, you should be doing stuff like that.
He probably thinks he's a viable character, and everybody really gives half a fuck about anything he does on screen or off it. So yeah, I imagine when he wrote it, it sounded great in his head. That but then again, these talking about the same people who sat around in a meeting somewhere when they said, oh, you know what? Mae Young is going to give birth to a hand, and everybody goes, that's fucking great. Let's run with that. So I'm sure when he put it on paper and he said, you know what, I'm going to put the strap on myself, a bunch of yes men went, fucking A, right you are.
Anybody can be a champion if it's wrote in, but nobody can be a champion if the booker decides that they didn't do all the right things and they weren't the right person, they didn't have the biggest muscles. So good for you, writing yourself in.
I can't figure the sense of it. When he won what? He won the
WCW heavyweight title.
Well, the company's out of business, so he's probably a contributing factor to that.